We are getting close now, guys. We continue the mega series, taking a look at all 30 athletes competing at this year's World's Strongest Man. We're looking at their story so far, how we think they'll do on the events, and how we rate their overall chances. Today's athlete is the popular American Rob Kearney. Auntie Liz, I know you're a big fan of Rob. We are very good friends with him. Brilliant strongman. Tell us what we need to know.
So Rob is another athlete who started his international strongman journey at the Amateur Arnold's when he competed there in 2015. This year will be his 4th appearance at World's Strongest Man, and so far he hasn't made the final yet. However, he has had greater success in the one-day shows, having won the 2017 Giants Live North American Open and the 2019 Arnold's Australia. Rob also held the American log lift record, which he first broke at the Giants Live World Log Lift Championships and then again on season 1 of the WUS Feats of Strength. Rob attempted to break his record again on season 2 of the Feats of Strength, but unfortunately he suffered a nasty tear to the tricep, which put him out of competition for several months. After that, he was hit with more health problems when he was diagnosed with testicular cancer. But after undergoing treatment, he returned to the sport, and he's had an incredible comeback, having placed 6th at the 2021 Rogue Invitational, and then just this year at the Arnold Strongman Classic, he was in 1st place after day 1 and ended up placing 5th overall.
So Rob's had an up and down story. I mean, he's had some incredible performances in strongman. He's had some things that have not gone his way. Obviously, the issues away from the sport. But he's always smiling, he's always positive, and he's always a pleasure to see.
Yeah, he is.
Let's see how we think he can do with the events this year, because this is a big thing with Rob. Rob has excellent events, and he does have some weaknesses. So it's going to be really important to see who he has in his group and also what events are in the group. So let's dive into the first event.
First, then we have the loading race.
So historically at World's Strongest Man, things have not gone perfectly for Rob. He would have certainly liked to have done a little bit better than he has. You know, for an athlete of his caliber who's won big international shows, you kind of put that pressure on yourself that you should be making the final. Yeah. And other than one appearance in the Stone-Off where he lost out to Luke Stoltman, he's actually ended up quite low in his groups at Worlds. Loading has not gone well for him in the past, and this is an event he needs to make sure training has been really, really hard on.
He's a fast athlete, isn't he?
He's very fast, moves well. We've got some of the events to come in a minute, which we'll talk about, but he's just notoriously not performed that well in. And I mentioned in some of the other videos how being tall and having a long kind of reach helps with a lot of the loading events. He's a shorter, in terms of height, he's got shorter arms, little hands for a strong man, by the way. He's still probably a big dude compared to
not weirdly small hands.
But when you're competing against these monsters, 6'8", 6'9", with a wingspan like a chimpanzee, it is a slight disadvantage. So he needs to make sure he's been training really hard on those events, because a good start is going to be paramount for Rob.
Next is the deadlift ladder, and I know that for, one of the smaller athletes, Rob is actually amazing at the static events, isn't he?
Absolutely. I mean, I think he'd rather it was a squat at World's Strongest Man, particularly going off his recent performance at the Arnold's, where he was unbelievable in the squat. But he is a very, very good deadlifter. And he's got a max of 440 kilos, which he did at the World Deadlift Championships a few years back. He's good for reps. I think it's an event he can score decent points on. It's just going to come down to, again, who is in your group. There are athletes that can beat him, but there's plenty that he can beat as well. So it could be one of those events that really, really becomes group dependent.
Now, this is an event I know he's going to love, the car walk.
I would expect so. We talk about being group dependent with the deadlift. I don't think it matters who you put him in on the car walk. He is one of the fastest athletes when it comes to carrying weights on his back. Super yoke performances, he's unbelievable at. If you kind of look through the history, he's almost always first on these type of events. Extremely fast. And to be quite honest, I think he's got to be going in looking at this event as his banker.
Next is the log lift for reps, and this is something that once upon a time would have been a banker, but obviously since the tricep injury, it's really knocked his confidence and he's stopped chasing the record at least, hasn't he?
Yeah, since he kind of tore his tricep, he's been a bit hampered with his jerk style of pressing. He's still more than competent in push pressing decent weights. He has had some weaker performances on log for reps. In 2018, he was actually 5th in his group. So for someone with such a good max, sometimes heat can get to him.
Yeah.
It can be a factor for a lot of the athletes, but normally you'd expect it to be a good event for Rob. And I think if he can have that good performance in the deadlift, start reasonable on the loading, solid car walk, which I expect him to win, he's going to be in a good position going into the log. He'll feel a bit more relaxed and hopefully can put in a really solid performance.
So I've already mentioned the little hands, and next we have the wrecking ball hold, which is a test of grip.
Absolutely, and this is why it's really, really important that Rob has a great start to this competition. He's got 3 events after the loading that he can really, really hit big points on. He needs the loading to be good as well, because the grip hold, he's going to struggle. It's his worst event by a long, long way. He struggles on any type of grip event. Historically, when we look at the grip events that he's done, he has not performed well. And it's very, very hard to just make your grip that much better.
Yeah.
You can train it hard, but just having naturally big hands is a huge advantage. So I think it's going to be this event that could cost him. He needs to make sure those events previous to this have put him in a good position.
If he is in a good enough position and able to do the stone off, obviously presuming he doesn't win his group, how is he going to fare on the stones?
His stone performances, when we look at the history, have not been incredible, to be honest. He's more of a mid-table, lower end of the table athlete when it comes to Atlas stones in competition. That doesn't mean he's bad by any means. You know, he's a determined athlete and he's more than capable. But as I've said in almost every one of these videos now, every athlete is capable of lifting Atlas stones at World's Strongest Man. So it's one of those events that he could be good at. It'll come down to positioning, how hungry he is, how much he wants it.
Right, so time for us to rate Rob's chances. But I was just thinking as you were talking about Rob as a strongman and as an athlete, like, close your eyes and picture him. Picture his body and his build, you know?
Okay.
You think about all the things that he's good at, yoke, deadlift, log lift, etc. His body size doesn't really matter in those events.
No.
Whenever the shape and like the length of your arms and stuff becomes a factor, such as the stones, getting your arms around, the loading, getting your arms around, the grip with the hand size, that's when he starts to struggle.
Yeah, I'd agree. Maybe a truck pull as well. Those type of events are where he struggles more on. His power is unbelievable.
Yeah.
If you look at his just powerlifting type numbers, his overhead numbers, his strength is up there with anyone.
Yeah.
And he's actually really good at moving. Like we said, his yoke is fantastic. He would be quick on frames and farmers if he could use straps.
Yeah.
It's the grip that lets him down on those type of events. So, yeah, I agree with you. I mean, it's weird to close my eyes and think of Rob, but he's a phenomenal athlete. And we see that so many times where we almost forget about Rob in terms of being a threat, and then suddenly he's in there performing exceptionally well.
You've still got to rate his chances, though.
I have. And look, I think it's absolutely paramount that he starts this competition quick out of the blocks. He needs a good performance on that loading. That is going to be key, because then he does have some great events. And when you start well, the momentum picks up. He'll do well on the deadlift. He'll win the car walk. I really can't see many people, perhaps an Evan Singleton, a Novikov, if you can avoid those type of athletes. But he's more than capable of beating them as well. That's how good he is on that type of event. His log is good. We know how good it is, particularly for Max. He needs to make sure the conditioning is spot on. And I think, again, if he's in a good position going into that, he's going to know he needs that big performance, because I can't see him doing anything other than last on the grip hold. He's going to drop points there. That could be an important factor. For me, when we think of how many great guys will be in each group, I think it's important, if Rob wants to get to the final, he needs to win the group. I don't think he wants to rely on being in a stone off.
No.
You know, if he can be in second position, so he's got that advantage, it will help. But there's even guys that could potentially come and beat him on that if he gets unlucky.
Yeah.
So for me, I think he's got to try and win the group. Every event from the start, trying to put as maximum points down and perform at his absolute best.
So if he did make it through to the final, there would be some decent events in there, like the yoke element of the medley. I'd be really interested to see him do the Flintstone lift, the behind the neck jerk.
That could be a really interesting one. It's going to come down to the confidence in the tricep and how training's got it. We know how explosive he is from watching his log lifts. So if he is feeling back to his best, yes, big points if he makes a final on an event like that. Potentially could be very quick on the medley. The boxes might slow him down a little bit, particularly how big and awkward they are. We know he'd be rapid on a yoke. I think he'd be very solid on the deadlift for reps. I think truck pull, power stairs are where he would probably fall back on. But there are certainly events he can challenge in.
So with all that said, I'm sure you're in agreement with me. We would absolutely love to see Rob make his first World's Strongest Man final, because it's been a long time coming. Like, his World's Strongest Man history doesn't do him as a strongman justice, I feel.
No, when you look at his one-day performances, he's an exceptional strongman. We've seen so many good performances, beating great athletes.
Yeah.
Just not being able to quite do it at World's Strongest Man. It shows how hard Worlds is. I've said before, the group stages of Worlds are really, really tough.
Yeah, they're horrible.
And it just takes different events for so many athletes. There's so many athletes that are all good at lots of different events. And they can all beat each other depending on the competition. It's the great guys that have no weaknesses that come to competition time and time again, and they're always there or thereabouts. And that's why you have the greats like a Brian Shaw, a Zydrunas Savickas, a Mariusz Pudzianowski. They were just so good at everything. It's why they were able to win so many titles.
So guys, let us know in the comments how you think Rob Kearney is going to do in the groups this year. Don't forget to like the video, make sure you are subscribed to the channel, and we will see you on the next one.